Ash fell from the sky. Again? Yes! Today we're going to be talking all about the Well of Ascension, written by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book in the Mistborn trilogy, and I am really excited to talk about this because it's very divisive when it comes to, do people like it, do people hate it, like what is the common opinion of it? And I have to say, when it comes down to it, I really do like it, but here's the weird thing. When I first read it, I absolutely hated it. And we're going to get into why I kind of hated it and why I think a lot of people don't like this book compared to the first book or the third book or even Era 2 in many ways. I really enjoy kind of revisiting it time and time again. So why don't we get into the review, because I am super excited to talk about this. So, what is the plot of the story? Well, it takes place 1 year after the events of the first Mistborn book. Vin has killed the Lord Ruler, and they've established this little government in Luthadel, and things are not going so well. What I mean by that is, well, other nations are kind of coming in and trying to take Luthadel, such as Elend's father, a couple other groups, and it's a real mess. It's turning into a real siege situation. No, not the video game where people get salty. So now it's up to Vin, Elend, and the rest of the thieving crew to run a nation and also prevent a lot of bloodshed that will possibly happen if any of these people come into the city. And it becomes a really interesting political intrigue book, but at the same time, it's very much like a castle siege book. I might as well talk about what I like about the book first before I get into kind of what I hate about this book. And that list is quite long a little bit, but it's one of these that's not going to overpower it. I absolutely love how Brandon Sanderson takes the world building and ups the ante. Even though you're kind of in Luthadel, there is a lot of things that happen, especially when it comes to people like Sazed that are off and he's kind of doing his thing. It's an interesting way to kind of have world building where what if God died and kind of all these people in this world cannot comprehend that God has died. Some people are kind of in denial while other people are embracing it, while other people are kind of having a giant, vied for power. And for me, when you kill the big bad evil guy, that's it. But when you kill him in the first book, and now everyone's kind of figuring out, okay, can I be king? Or what type of system of government are we going to do? Or is this going to work? Or that's not going to work? For me, oh man, I love it when it comes to this book so much. Another thing that I have to say that I really like about this book is I love the characters. I love how much they grow within that 1 year. Even though it's like a time skip, you don't feel like time has gone by all that much. Yes, a year has gone by, but the characters haven't done the time skip thing when it comes to TV shows where if you don't like a character, they'll just backtrack or they'll change their personality. No, even when it comes to Elend, which we'll get to right now, is I love that we get to see his POVs in many ways of him struggling to be a ruler. And it's one of these things that I just love, these types of stories where you follow like this monarch or someone that doesn't have all the answers, but they have to appear to be. And for me, Brandon Sanderson does such an amazing job with that, especially when it comes to his responsibility and kind of his downfall and possibly when he comes to his rise up a little bit. But I just love these types of conflicts of when someone's in power, even though they really shouldn't be. What happens? Do they keep to their morals or do they kind of have to change with the times? A really good example of this that really goes well with this is actually Fable 3, if you've ever played it. Spoiler alert, kind of in the game, even though it's like a 10-year-old game, you become king, so you have to make some of these hard choices. And this happens quite a bit in this book. I was actually getting a lot of flashbacks of that. So I really do enjoy that we actually kind of have those things with Elend. The other people that I absolutely love is Sazed. Sazed becomes one of my favorite characters within the story, especially here where you actually get into his mind quite a bit and you kind of figure out what makes him tick, why does he, look for religions, why is he doing the things that he does, and even when it comes to feruchemy, it is so cool to kind of see how it expands, as well as when it comes to allomancy, how that expands and how they're finding different alloys, and the magic system is exactly as we left it, except now that we have Vin, who's kind of a more embracing of her power, she knows her powers. You can do crazier things now, and there's a lot of action in the story that takes place in on rooftops or even in 1-on-10 fights where Vin is just knocking people over and really shows how powerful the magic can be, and especially how deadly allomancy can be, especially why a Mistborn is so feared and why they're so rare. Now, the overall plot, I really do like it. There's a lot of there are some shaky moments, which we'll get into very, very soon. But overall, I kind of like that there's a mystery, there's also like this political intrigue, but as well as when it comes down to the story, it isn't a heist story more as slash a murder mystery slash a siege book in many ways. And I've only read maybe two, The Well of Ascension and Gears of War Anvil Gate, but sieges always fascinate me so much, and like how you have these people stuck in like this little place and they can't escape, so they have to do whatever they can to kind of survive. I guess another example of this would be in a Song of Ice and Fire with Stannis, but that's more of the in the past type of stuff. Like the lengths people are willing to go to survive, even though their backs are against the wall and they don't know what to do. I love that. I love that kind of have in this plot you have a literal rock in a hard place where, they're in this place, there's like a bunch of armies around them, and they're just like, guess we'll wait it out and see what happens. We might as well get into the bad. And now when we get into this, I'm going to be spoiling the book, so there's spoilers down below if you don't want to watch the rest. My quick summary is read the book. It has a lot of great moments to it. Okay, everyone's gone. Okay, I'm going to talk about the main thing that I hated about this book the first time that I read it, and even now, and that is the love triangle between Vin, Ellen, and Zane. Oh, good God. It is the quintessential 2000s romance and fantasy. It is edgelord, preppy boy, and girl that likes to wear pants and likes to play with knives. And it is at times painful to read because Brandon Sanderson at this time is not good at romance. I don't even think now he's that good with romance. He kind of builds upon it. But this is one of his shortcomings where here it's like the will they, won't they, but to the nth degree. And oh man, do I hate Zane. Zane is like one of the worst characters that has ever been written because he is a 2000... I know this book came out in 2007, but because I was a teenager in 2008, he is the prime edgelord. He's like the edgelord, like if you play Dungeons and Dragons, he is the rogue that will sit in the corner and like he'll like look at people and you ask him, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just looking and observing all these people. And I'm going to figure out every time a person walks by me, how I'm going to efficiently kill them if they piss me off. And I hate that when it comes to Zane. Zane is peak edgelord. Like if you just touch him or even like the air from him touches you, you are going to get cut. And like he like listens to MCR. And I just, when it comes to Brandon Sanderson and villains, they're kind of over the top a little bit. Like when it comes to Ellen's father and his half-brother Zane, Ellen's father is like the worst when it comes to I am the evil maniacal villain. Ha 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 ha. Like he doesn't laugh, but he's like one of the worst when it comes to I'm here for the sake of being evil. Even in the first book, he's there for the sake of being evil and being an obstacle. But when it comes to Strathventure, he's the absolute worst. Like you see, like he's like how he treats his, his sons, as well as like I'm just gonna kill my son, and we'll get like a new heir, or I'll become king. Blah 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 blah. And it is so satisfying when Vin literally slices him in half, as well as the horse. Not only is that like a badass moment, but you just feel so satisfied that this man is no longer gonna be in the picture. Now, when it comes to Zane, oh man, I hate Zane. Like I said, he is an edgelord. Like he's the person that's, I'm insane and should I kill everyone? And this becomes a problem throughout the story because it totally derails. Like when it comes to his chapters, it feels like a different story. I know what Brandon Sanderson's trying to do because he's trying to show that, haha, this person isn't insane. Now, another complaint that I have about the story is a lot of stretches when it comes to this book, nothing really happens. What I mean by that is, yeah, it's a siege story, but the first time reading this, when it comes to a sequel, right, you need to kind of up the ante. I think maybe because I had expectations when you read Mistborn, like it takes place in Luthadel, right? And it's like, okay, we've done Luthadel, we have this big old empire. I can't wait for like Vin, Ellen, and all these people to like go on like an expedition to find the Well of Ascension, or kind of doing the exact same thing, like history repeating itself. But it doesn't quite happen in the story. You just sit there in your castle siege story and you're just like waiting and figuring things out. The first time that I read this, I got to about the end of part 2, and I actually had to stop the book, and I put it down for a while, like I want to say like 2 or 3 months, picked it up again, and of course things got more interesting. As I've kind of aged a little bit, I can see what Brandon Sanderson's trying to do, but I don't know if it's like as efficient as it should be. It's like, okay, it is a siege story. You're not going anywhere. So the slow pace and kind of the slow buildup is supposed to be people realistically in a siege and feeling hopeless. And it's just one of those things, like it doesn't come off bad, it just comes off as a very slow thing. But I guess those are like the main things. Though the other cool things, like the cool moments of this book that I absolutely love, is the ending with like the Kolos coming into the city, and it just becomes a bloodbath. All these people that you love just start, literally dying. You have Tindval dead, you got Doxson dead, you got Clubs dead. Like the first time that I read this, it was horrifying. And I guess that's kind of the point that it's supposed to be, is that you can't go home again. The odds are against like this ragtag city, which is on the verge of, going bye-bye. And that's something that I absolutely enjoy about this book, is that everyone fails, but they fail upward in an appropriate way. Because realistically, you can't have a story where it's, the first book, I think one of the reasons why there's a disconnect between why people love the first Mistborn book and hate this one is it isn't a heist story. It isn't the first book that you were kind of given, because Brandon Sanderson doesn't like repeating himself. And that's kind of the problem, isn't it? Like, you can't do another heist story when you literally you've robbed and killed the highest person you could possibly have at this moment in time. Like, you can't do a bigger heist. I think that's kind of like the disappointment. Like, that was kind of what people were thinking. And you have like almost, again, you have a very political heavy story with a lot of, twists and turns, as well as it being like the story set in a siege where you're in the small town where people are like losing food, the wells are getting poisoned, people are turning towards religion, which this is where Brandon Sanderson's really showing his love for religion, as a person that is, has a lot of faith, as well as when it comes to his exploration of faith in the story with when it comes to Sayzhead. I kind of love that Kelsier has his own religion now. He has the Church of the Survivor, but it's fun to see how people kind of interpret all the events. And Kelsier's plan to overthrow the Lord Ruler wasn't just stealing his money, stealing his wealth, but stealing people's belief in him as well, which is, I think, the final, no pun intended, nail in the coffin in many ways. And I just love that. I love when Brandon Sanderson kind of explores religion in this way. Maybe this is one of the reasons why I love, Sayzhead. I love the scene where he goes to the village and, he's doing like the burial rites, and people like, he just picks like a random religion they might have been, and they're like, okay. And it's fun to see that kind of exploration, because it's so much different than what you think. Like, what happens when your dominant religion is kind of split apart, when your god king dies, and what's going to happen when things get replaced. And man, it's so much fun to like revisit the story, especially this is great for a reread, because you catch little things. And I think once we get into the Hero of Ages, I'll talk about it a little more, but I just love rereading the story. Now, do I recommend the story? Yes, I think this is a really solid sequel to Mistborn, or The Final Empire, or whatever you want to call it, because it takes everything that you like, it expands the characters, it expands the world, and it expands the magic system in a way where it's very satisfying. And in the end, it becomes a really touching book, especially with the action and even like some of the character deaths. Like, rereading it, I kind of forgot about some people dying, but I kind of remember in the back of my head, right? And like a little tear fell out, and I'm sure if Marsh was, I want to know if like Marsh were to cry, does he cry oil or blood, or is it more like of an edgelord type of thing? I would love to see that depiction of what happens, but I'm just rambling at this point. I say check it out. It has a lot of ups and downs, and if you can get past kind of some of the romance portions, you're going to be fine. But in the end of the day, I absolutely love this book, and I'm going to continue keep rereading it. Now that the Lost Metal is on the horizon, I've already kind of reread all of, the Wax and Wayne series, so I'll be talking about that soon. What do you all think about this book? Do you like it? Do you hate it? What are your favorite parts? I would love to hear it in the comments down below. If you like this video, maybe consider subscribing down below as well. I would really appreciate that. And hey, if you want to watch some more of my videos, I do have more Mistborn videos that I do, so it's going to be over here. Yeah. And we're gonna have some fun. I have a lot of fun videos coming up, so thank you all so much, and it's good to be back. Well, everyone, like always, may your food and drink ever be tasteful. May your books be filled with fantasy and adventure. Bye, everyone. See ya.